let's just introduce Mariel. So she's going to be talking about crossing the line and how our online activities impact our offline behaviour. So Mariel is their former sub-editor for a technology news site and now works full-time as a copywriter for a digital marketing agency and freelances as a blogger. So over to Mariel. Clap.
Thanks everyone for coming. So here's the talk. Crossing the line, how our online activity affects our real life behaviour. Now, working in digital marketing, social media plays such an integral role in our lives, from using LinkedIn to that prospective job candidate, to going on Twitter and following the latest industry trends. We use it so regularly that it ends up coming back at home with us, taking our work home. And no one really understands just how much it impacts our offline behaviour, but I'll highlight how social media does this in 4 easy steps. So on, instant gratification. We're just connecting with others quicker than ever before. Like I said, it's so easy just to send a connection on LinkedIn, just to follow people on Twitter. There's no etiquette on getting to know people, that sort of politeness of getting to know people. And the second point is overexposure. So we're compromising our level of intimacy on online interactions. Back to the first point where we just become so quickly connected to others. Again, we apply that same depth to our conversations to people. We just divulge so much data that we end up forgetting about, again, the etiquette and the politeness and thinking, leave a bit of mystery in the air instead of just revealing all our information at once. The third point is something called the social media contagion effect. So the behaviours that we pick up online, we actually apply in our everyday lives. So if someone posts an angry Facebook status update, chances are we're going to get influenced by that and apply that in our everyday lives and our closest friends and family. The last point is comparing and contrasting. We're competing against others, and that can have some good positive outcomes because it's good to challenge each other once in a while, but there's also some detrimental effects. So I'll talk about this in a bit more. So instant gratification, more connections. So they found out that the more connections you have, the more of a source you are. So the more people that you know, the more ideas you gain from them, which in turn leads to having more opinions. So the more opinions that you have and share, the more chances you are of getting more connections. Second point, the digital intimacy versus real life intimacy. We end up confusing what we do online with what we do offline. So again, the photo albums that you just post on Facebook, just showing all these different information with all these people that you tagged in. It's like, would you really go up to a stranger and just say, oh, by the way, let me show you my childhood photo album? Not really, unless you're quite a vigilant child. The third effect, social media contagion effect. A researcher at the University of Chicago, John Cacioppo, did some studies and noted that loneliness is actually transmitted through social networks. He found that if a direct connection on Facebook is lonely, there's a 52% chance of you being lonely. Make that a contact of a contact, that reduces to 25%. Make that a friend of a friend of a friend, 3 degrees out, that goes down to 50%. Okay, so that does filter down significantly. But if you just imagine just 3 contacts through, you're already instantly influenced by that. So if that's all happening online, then think how that must apply in your everyday interactions. Fourth point, comparing and contrasting. Okay, so people might lead these crazy lives on Facebook and just have, all these fantastic followers on Twitter. But the thing is, you're never going to be able to stay up to date with all these conversations. Yeah, social media is 24/7, but you only work 9 to 5, hopefully, when we're not freelancing, and then you go home and you should really shut that down. So try not to make it a competitive pace. So how do we combat that? Okay, well, first is spend less time with social networks. Remember that you have a life outside the office, and that you don't always have to be on your smartphone and connected to your profile each time. Second, review your moods. You notice that you're becoming a bit more depressed, you're becoming a bit more influenced by certain opinions that you would never have before. Okay, so remember your own identity. Third, never compare. There's a poem called Desiderata, which is by my favourite writer, Max Ehrmann, and the favourite line goes, if you compare yourself to others, you may become vain and bitter, but always there'll be greater and lesser persons than yourself. There's a lesson in that. Don't try and compete with everyone else, because you're unique. Fourth, strike a balance between your digital life and your real life. Again, it goes back to the first point, if you see yourself going on social network all the time, then you're doing something wrong. And whilst it is important to cultivate a network of so many people, just remember that keep your friends and family close, because they're the most important contacts that you need. Thank you for listening.